Hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are arriving again, and as we are, I want to invite you to begin standing just for a couple of minutes of movement, please. Unless you have a reason to want to stay seated, please begin standing. You can turn your eyes away from the screen. You can find a place for your body to walk or touch the ground or spread your arms, whatever feels like the first needed movement. Whatever feels like the first and most immediately needed movement in the body. Can I get some thumbs up if you can hear me okay and the music at the same time? Great, thank you. Oh, yeah, the breaths, the self-touch, whatever is here to welcome you upon arrival into the space. And just inviting your body to bring you into a shape, a posture, or a shape that feels accurate right now. It just feels right. And you feel free to find that shape through movement, but eventually, when you find it, pause inside of that shape. And it could be a shape of bending down, collapsing, closing your body. Could be a shape of reaching your arms out as if to ask for something. And it could be a shape of kneeling on the ground just to be closer to her. But wherever you find that shape, pause in it fully, dear. Can you be still in that shape for a long moment? Let this shape and all of its sensations and feelings within give itself a title, a name. Just hear it in your mind when it comes. And once you feel connected to this shape enough, allow the cycle of movement to continue from there organically, naturally. Your body eventually, just eventually, bringing you to another shape through a cycle of movement organically without directing too much. Just organic breaths, sounds that you want to make, touch that you want to feel, and then suddenly falling into a shape that feels, oh, just so right, or needed, or just present. When you know that's the shape, pause inside of it, fully still. Give all of your being to this shape. All of you is here, identified fully with this shape, just for a few moments. How does it breathe? How does it feel? And what is its name, its title? Let the shape give you its own title. Receive. And onward. The movement continues so organically, right from where you are. Maybe it changes completely the pace of it, the speed of it. Maybe you take more space. Maybe you run to a different part of your room. Maybe you stay right here. And still your body holds both the first shape and the second shape. They're still here. Maybe you still cycle through them through your movement. And maybe from the two shapes so far, a third one eventually arises and arrives organically, no rush. Maybe you touch the first shape and make it, and maybe you flow into the second shape and make it, and eventually there's a third shape or posture that wants to be made. Trusting your body to take you there. Every inch of your body participating. The knees, the ovaries, the shoulders, the fingertips. When you find it, pause. Even if the shape is dynamic and big and almost violent, pause. You can feel it like this too. Stillness. Stillness. Letting this shape now give you its title, its name, a few whispers. And for the next 1 minute, allow your body to move freely again, whispering all of the names and the titles you were given in sporadic, organic order, however they come, sounding the words, making the movements, not directing, just following, whispering, moving. 1 minute. All the whispers, all the shapes somehow merging, whispering, informing you, touching you. And that one last place in the body in which you pause, maybe a shape, maybe a posture, maybe simply a relaxed standing or lying down, all the way until the only thing you can feel is the small dance, not making it, but sensing it. Ah, releasing the body to the breath, and returning to a circle at your own pace. No need for eye contact or screen looking at first. Maybe just your notebook and a couple of notes, or just a couple of stick figures or a drawing or a symbol in your notebook to honor or acknowledge something that was touched. Take your time. All right. All right. All right. If you want to share some of these keywords that you just jotted down in the chat, just as a way of sharing how you are arriving or what is present, you're welcome to. Ah, mhm. Good. So we've contacted the body, we've said hello, the body has said hello back, right? And now we can journey a little deeper. I am just okay. Yeah, Darren is just texting. She's going to be here in a couple of minutes. I think she forgot we're meeting today. And then we're going to be without Anna, Nina M, and yeah, Nadia, you're here. Thank you for coming. So I think we're missing one more, but I don't know exactly who that is right off the top of my head right now. Hmm. Who else is not here? If you know, let me know. And I'm going to look at the chat. Oh, Erica, that's right. Let's see. Sometimes people expect a reminder that we're meeting, and we just don't really send those anymore. I'm going to try and text. Um, okay. All right, people. Let us see. Let us see you. Urethra. Tamara, Turin, wow. Okay. Mouse, rest, gratitude, heart, pulse, says Petra. I'm in hunger. I am hunger, silence. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay. So I am ready. I am committed. I am birthing. It is time to speak, Michelle. Nadia, the resting lady. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes that's all there is. And that's all we need to be. Andrea B, gentle power, tiredness. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And you keep your eyes on the chat. I just want to thank you for speaking your feedback back to the weekend on trauma informed care and the nervous system, and those of you who chimed in on the Facebook thread and let us know how it all felt for you. I really appreciate that kind of feedback. And it's always, always, always welcome, including a feedback on the weekends with me. You know, it's always invited if you have anything to share. Just naming that. And today, my intention is to keep the forum really open for us to keep mostly staying in the same room and to have an open floor for practicing a few things around, specifically around upregulation and downregulation. Um, and basically just kind of revisiting the main things we learned around trauma informed care and the nervous system. And also, you know, asking our questions and figuring out who are we as guides who are becoming more and more trauma informed in our embodiment facilitation, right? And so to begin, I want to invite you, I want to have something I like to call like a village recall or a village practice. So basically to recall together some of the moments, the points, the snippets of knowledge and information that you received from Laura and Michelle last weekend that stuck with you. Maybe it's just one thing, right? And it's in your own words. It does not need to be accurate. It does not need to be perfect. It does not need to be the smartest or the most important thing, right? It's just about you're one of the people in the village who remembers one part of the story. And so we're kind of putting together the collective tapestry of what we learned. So, one thing, and I can start here, and you feel free to unmute at any time. You don't have to raise your hand, you don't have to wait for your turn. Just like when you have something, just speak it out. Um, if you prefer to put it in the chat, you can, but I invite you to consider coming in with your voice because it's nice. Um, so let me see. One thing I recall is why don't you actually let me give you a minute? Why don't you journal about it for a moment? Why don't you connect to something that you heard, learned, became exposed to during the trauma informed weekend, and it's still with you? You still remember it. Maybe just connect to a couple of those things and write them down. Okay. All right. So, yeah, let's begin somewhere. Let's begin somewhere. Nadia, Josefina, how about one of you two? I see you not writing anymore, so maybe there's something there.
So I had to leave in the last part of Michelle's second practice that she did, the guided practice she did, but that one really stuck with me. I think it was like the three layers of the body. The front is the way we meet the client, and like I remember something about like being soft and receiving, and the column in the middle, and then the back as if we can lean into ourselves and having this kind of internal support. And I've been using that consciousness with my own clients, and it's really, yeah, it's really working.
Awesome. Yes, yes. A lot of people resonated with that one, and I'm glad you're bringing it back in. Great. What else?
I can go.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Ermak.
Um, what I remember is that trauma is not what actually happened to us, but our nervous system capacity is what makes it a trauma or not. I mean, it's if we have a small capacity for the incident at the time, it may be a trauma for us, but not for another
Mhm,
person just
mhm.
living the same experience because they have a wider range. So it's not the
Exactly.
event, and
Great.
but more the personal response capacity.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Ermak. Yes. And Indigo, were you about to speak? Yeah.
Yeah, sensing what is my stuff and their stuff when I'm having a response that's coming up in my body.
Mm.
Making
Hmm.
that discernment.
Sensing what is yours and what is theirs. Um, okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think this is a really important one, and it's a tough one to put into a particular algorithm. Michelle, do you want to say something about that? Anything that comes to mind? Just to kind of flesh this out a little more again.
Yeah, I think just like anything, like we're all learning a new language, right? I think it's about practice. It's just the consistent curiosity and noticing, like, is this mine? Just even
Hmm.
that question of just, is this, hmm, and just taking a moment with that. And I think the practice of being able to kind of rest back into our own back body or back into our own body is to allow space in
Hmm.
that moment between what we're noticing, the client experiencing, what we're experiencing, and to just kind of let it settle. That pause is everything, both in the work that we do, but also just in life in general. That when I notice myself activated, the more I can pause and just take a moment and let things settle or move them or do whatever I need to do, it just gives me more information.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Perfect. Thank you. I have to say, to be fully transparent, my experience in guiding one-on-one specifically is that very often a client and I will share a thing. It will be true both for them and for me. And it will be hard to figure out if it's theirs or mine. And I think the practice is to let them name it, right? To let them, because I can be aware that it might be theirs or mine or whatever, but it's like you tease it out in a way where the client gets to shape it. and say what it is for them, because that's what's important, right? But sometimes your own, whatever's happening inside you and is yours, is actually in response to something that's happening inside them too. And so that is, in a way, intuition. That is where you drink your own guidance from, right? So I don't think it's necessarily a negative thing to, and you need to be absolutely clear, oh, this is mine, I need to cut it out. It's more like, as Michelle says, like kind of make space and let them define what that thing actually is for them, because that's what matters. But do use your own intuition and hunch in that way, right? Um, that's my 2 cents. Okay, what else?
I can share.
Mm-hmm.
I think, um, yeah, just like being able to determine or understand where a person is in their state walking in the door, maybe as a new client or a current client, um, whether they're needing stabilization or whether it's terrain to be able to sort of go in and explore and then come out and resource, or if they're in only a place of needing resourcing, or if they're ready for like, okay, like we're going into the deep territory, and 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 then understanding like my own capacity or our capacity, whatever's in our own nervous system capacity, or like understanding what our own desire or intention in being a guide is, whether we refer to a different practitioner where they need certain support in that realm. Yeah, something like that.
Okay. Thank you. Like a couple, like few different pieces, but just to, because I think that one's really important. And I heard a lot of you speak to how important it was for you to learn that and connect with that. So I'm going to just summarize it again. And I think, like the first piece you were speaking to, Mouse, was the 3 levels of intervention that Michelle introduced, right? And so the first one is basically stabilizing, making sure the client is stable enough, that there's enough resource and stability in their own nervous system, enough safety for them to go into exploring a trigger or a difficult place or anything at all, right? And then the second stage would be going into that thing, exploring it and pendulating there, right? So exploring something that may be distressing or stressful to the system, and then kind of coming back to resource, experiencing stability again. So kind of hand in hand, but exploration, right? And doing a little bit of the work that we need to do, right? And then the third stage being the possibility for evolution, expansion, growth. Here is something that's the jewel or the key or the thing that's ready to happen or the healing that's ready to happen, potentially, right? Like, not that we need to push it always. And Michelle, I don't know if that sounds like these are just my own words, but let me know if that feels accurate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Mousebird, you brought up something during the training that was really valuable. And that is like, you know, in essence, like when do we just trust the expression? Like when do we just let people express, and I think, one of the things that I do with my clients is I really set the stage in that first session with, I trust your body and I trust your brain. And so of course I'm going to want to touch in and I'm going to want to check, but ultimately like this is your journey. And if you go beyond your capacity, then part of my job is to notice that, to be curious about that and to check on that. But I don't want to stop somebody's expression. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And if they need
Yeah.
to be on the floor pounding and screaming and like moving that energy, I'm not going to assume they're in a dysregulated place,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like if it keeps going, I might want to check in, I might want to assess, I might want to ask all of the things that you guys have been learning around slowing it down. Can you take one of those movements and really focus on that or whatever it might be? But you know, there's such value in the self-expression itself. And
Mm.
I think the overall message I want to give is like all of these things are like, again, those guardrails, but those guardrails can move further out, be closer in, you know, and we're
Yeah.
resilient creatures,
Right.
just naturally resilient, and
Yeah.
just keep remembering that for
Mm.
ourselves and for our clients. Like we wouldn't be here if we weren't
Mm.
pretty resilient as humans and dealing with a lot of shit and a lot of strong feelings. And you know, just because something might get activated in a session does not mean all is lost. It's an opportunity, you know, to keep
Yeah.
exploring.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you. Right. So the 3 levels of intervention don't necessarily intervene instantly. Obvious if someone's going to have a big cry. You know, I remember one of my first teachers sharing a story about, you know, being a therapist here in California and seeing a client for a while. And one of the sessions, and she charges, you know, at the top of the rates up here, out here. And she said, I was very aware I'm charging, you know, something like, I don't know, now it's probably $250 a session. And the client is with me and goes into uncontrollable sobbing and weeping. And she said that for the entire 50-minute session, her part of her wanted to intervene to say, and you know, we need to go into some healing, into some transition, into something else, into getting the insight. And yet there was a deeper part of her that kept her quiet and just holding the space and she allowed her client to simply weep without saying a word for 50 minutes. And that was the session. And I think that's all I want to say. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Because
trust. It's self-trust.
mm,
You know, your body knows. That's why we keep coming back to that body, right? It's like your body knows. Let it play out. Let it ride,
right.
right? Versus like,
Right. And you're thinking though, you know, like I'm charging so much, or I'm the healer here, I'm the guy, but and yet even just to trust even that, you know, at all, that is your role at the moment, to just let this person who has not had a space to be witnessed in their grief, or to be witnessed in their pain, to actually be seen, to be held without any fixing, any, you know, improving, any growth, any healing. Just that is the healing, right? So yeah, just wanted, I think that just sometimes these stories that are real life stories are, you know, worth more than 1,000 words of training. So take it with you. So yeah, and I'm gonna put one in there from, you know, I've been asking you, and I think you know, as we continue adding to the story of what we remember from the weekend, I want to just invite all of us to just go in like with one sentence, one jewel, one bullet point, right? So we can kind of piece like a larger weaving together. And I want to put in this one that Michelle actually wrote it down so I can speak it in her own words, similar to her what she said. But um, I love their phrasing. In the deep body work, we offer messages in the body of safety that we didn't have before. So we offer messages of safety or choice or agency or connection, which are the big healing, trauma healing pieces, right? Connection, choice, agency, safety. We offer these messages in the body where they weren't existing before for the person. So we create this kind of new story of safety, agency, choice, and connection. And that's kind of what we do when we work with someone who's, well, work with anyone really, right? Because we all have wounding. Is there any one other sentence or bullet point? Yeah, Andrea L.
That everything goes back to relationship. Most of the traumas come out of relationship, of unhealthy elements of relationship. And then you have nobody to talk about, the trauma is even worse. And afterwards, the healing is also very often through relationship with someone else, but at the end also by trusting yourself, relationship with your body, with the deep body, with the wisdom. Everything is relationship.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Thank you. Great. Most wounding happened in relationship, and most healing needs to happen in relationship, right? As they say. What else?
Yeah,
Petra.
yeah. That we all experienced trauma, the deep respect for everybody, and that we don't do therapy in the way, and it might be the right thing to refer someone to someone else, even it might be difficult or not. I want to be the one who knows, but sometimes it's really important to see the own ability to be responsible for someone else.
Absolutely. That is a golden rule. And it's all over our code of ethics as deep body facilitators, which you will have to, you will become more familiar with down the line. But, just because a couple of you have already named along these lines, something along these lines, I kind of want to really light it up again. What I would say, and kind of summarizing what Michelle and Petra just named, I would say something like, as a golden rule, we trust ourselves. I as a guide trust myself, my capacity, and I trust myself, my client's body, brain capacity, resilience, and ability to be with deep emotional stuff and cognitive stuff, right? So we trust that we can, we trust that they can, and that we can support each other, work with it. And the other side of that, hand in hand, is that we must stay as guides in our lane, right? That was an expression we used, and I think it's very accurate. Stay in your lane. You must refer out if you feel like you're underprepared to meet the task at hand, to serve the person in the depth of their experience. Most often, this will come up when someone's dealing with chronic, maybe not chronic, but like complex trauma, right? And, trauma, like a severe life event that affected them in ways that you can't even begin to fathom. You will know when, you're hesitating and you just don't know how to go about it. And you will say, one of the things I have done before, and especially in my earlier years, would be to say, I still would love to hold space for you in this way for whatever emerges, but I need to make sure that you're also working with a trauma specialist who is equipped to support you in these deeper places where I can't, right? So it's not like I reject you and I turn you down, but I need you to know that someone else is better prepared than I am to support you, and I still want to support you if you want. You know what I mean? Like, so this is one way you can do it, but we trust ourselves, we know we can do it, and yet when the time comes and we can't do it, we take full responsibility to refer someone out to a specialist, right? Because we're not trauma specialists. Well, unless you are. And so Michelle was speaking to these three levels. We are either trauma aware, trauma informed, or trauma specialists, right?
Specific.
And what was that?
Trauma specific.
Trauma specific. Okay, right. Right, great. So trauma awareness, right? Like you're aware people have trauma, which is maybe a lot of where we all are coming from right now, right? But then in this training, and maybe as through other trainings you've had, you have become trauma informed, right? So you have more tools. You're someone who has tools and knowledge enough, sufficient tools and knowledge to support someone through some activation, through some freeze or fight or flight. Like you have some tools and you know what to do when someone is an active, trauma response, right? And then trauma specific is when you have tons of training, qualifications, credentials, and preparation to actually address specific trauma. And you know a lot about what to do. So you just know, stay in your lane, right? Do what you can, but don't go past it. If you really are curious about working with trauma, you have to do a lot more training after this training, right? If you want to be a trauma specialist, this is not the training. This is not everything. We are trauma informed, but not trauma specific, right? Okay. Mouse, did I answer your question in the meantime?
I'm afraid I might be like verging a little from, I was just going to ask more questions about what would be good resources or teachers or organizations outside of the scope of like licensed mental health counseling that would be a good platform to study more trauma
Yeah,
specific.
I actually have a um, document that I will share with you after today that is all about that. Yeah, so I think a lot of this will be in there. Yeah, so I think I just want to make sure, and I'll let you back in with whatever you want to share, and maybe you have more questions, which we can maybe answer now or answer towards the end of the call. But I just want to make sure that I touched on everything that I felt like it was really important to touch on. Yeah, so is there anyone else who wanted to mention something here and you didn't get a chance to, just so I don't silence you before we move on? Yeah, Nicole.
Yeah, just a little. I was just remembering that such a little or simple exercise like moving our feet can makes us breathe automatically deeply.
Mm.
And the same as like with the head, the turning the head diagonally down. Yeah, I found that
Yeah.
found just to be able to, you can use it very easily everywhere because it's
Very, very small movements, right? Very small, kind of small dance type of movements that Laura was creating to, potentially downregulate or create like a deeper capacity on the nervous system. Yeah, beautiful. What else? Anything else? I know there's actually a lot more, and we're about to get into it just in a more specific way. But if there was anything that you wanted to say and didn't get a chance to, I just wanted to.
I would love to address the question that Indigo brought to us, just because I think that it is I think it's a question that you will be asking throughout your entire career as a facilitator, which is how much self-disclosure is appropriate, right? And the general rule that I would offer for that is self-disclosure is only appropriate when it's in service to the client. And so if let's say a client shares a story and I have a similar story, I really need to assess, like, is my adding my story in service to the client who's in front of me? Is that in some way, shape, or form going to support their journey? Or is this really about me? Is this about me wanting to create a connection with the client? Is this like what is really happening here? And it's not obviously that you don't want to create a connection with the client. It's just that you want to be judicious in what you're sharing and making sure that it's about them and it's not about us. Does that make sense? So it's perfectly appropriate to bring it back to your own. I would keep it like in the moment, like Stefan is always encouraging us to speak as if it's happening right now, like from the body right now. And so I would encourage that when we do that self-disclosure, I'm noticing my own breath deepening as I see yours deepening. So, you're mirroring, you're bringing your own self into the relationship. But I'm curious, Indigo, if there was a specific, specific question even in that, or if there was a scenario that you had in mind that would be helpful to kind of play with.
Yeah, I think I've just seen an example of like these sex and relationship coaches who are very much share a lot of their own story as kind of by example. But this modality seems different because it's like when you're one-on-one with someone, you might be practicing in relation, you are relationship building in some way, as someone is learning how to be in relationship with themselves. But sharing personal details, like in like traditional talk therapy, I haven't had any of that. It's been sort of like they're removing their own story completely, but this is different. And I kind of wonder when to bring that in.
Yeah. That's interesting that you say that, because as a therapist, I was always, my supervisors would get upset with me because I would do self-disclosure because I work with teens. And it was really important that we had that relational foundation, for me to be able to disclose, like, yeah, I've experienced something similar, or whatever. So I do believe that, again, self-disclosure can be really support that connection. It's just like, where is the line, and I think we all have to find that within ourselves, because I could go on and keep sharing a story and waste half of the client session, right? Or I could touch on something, use this beautiful deep body language to really touch in something that's happening inside me in this moment, or that I can relate to in my own body, versus like going into deep story. That would, in this modality, that would be the suggestion, is to just like keep it, that relational piece, and really noticing also how the client is responding to that, right?
Yeah. And I think, Indigo, honestly, like I know you're asking from a place of like curiosity and cognitive, wanting to know the right thing, and it's a beautiful thing to know. I also know that you are so intuitive and attuned and creative and natural that you will know exactly what to do in the moment, and you will really find that line very easily, I believe. um, that in a moment when someone talks about, say, being violated sexually, for example, you may say, thank you for sharing that with me. I can definitely relate, and having my boundaries crossed not just once, or like you will know exactly how to build that rapport and that connection, and so that the client may actually like pause and be like, oh, wow, yeah, I'm not alone. And then feel even safer to tell you more, right? But yeah, as Michelle says, like I think it's just about the not like dumping, obviously, like I don't think anybody here would do that though. Like I think we're really aware that this space is for the client, and we're not here to do our emotional processing with them, right? Obviously. um yeah. All right. So I want to ask you all, and I really want to create some space for some practice and some brainstorming. So let's begin with, and just because of, I want to have time for everything, and we've named so many things already, but I also want to put a few more, as just to bring a few more threads back in here, from what we shared in the trauma informed weekend. Feels really important. Something Michelle said, and that I continue always repeating as well, is keep guiding the process, whatever it is with the client, to embodiment and away from the strictly mental and cognitive. So oftentimes we'll be like, da, 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 and this and that, and and my story and my mother, and when I was 15, and then my brother did that, and but back 15 years before that even, and then you're like, oh, I hear you, dear. And as you say that, I notice your hands. Can you just pause and move your hands like that for a moment? You know, with that, without the words for a moment. And as you speak about that experience 15 minutes ago, where do you feel your body light up the most? Where do you feel that tenderness? Or can you feel that story living somewhere in your body? Let's go there, right? Over and over and over and over again. The person is going to want to talk about it because that's what we do. That's what they do in therapy. That's what they think therapy is, right? Your role is to be a warrior for the body. Let's touch it in the body. Let's bring the breath there. Let's make a gesture from that place. Oh, you're already making a gesture. Let's repeat it a few times. Can you say a word with that gesture? Oh, different story now. Right. So we keep bringing the process to embodiment in every session, but especially when working with something that resembles trauma or is trauma. Okay, another thing I wanted to touch on is, obviously, we've said all of these things, and I'm gonna, even today, and I'm gonna say them again. We are offering in the body and in the session, in every way we can, messages of safety, of connection with us, between us and the client, between the client and the world, between the client and her body, messages of connection, relationship, and goodness, right? Yeah, I can feel it. I can touch it. The world is supporting me. The ground beneath my feet is supporting me. The earth is with me. The universe wants my growth and healing. Like the benevolent ancestors in my life are watching our session and want me to heal, create every opportunity for that client to feel connected to everything, to anything and everything in a good way, to everything that's good in their lives, right? Connection, 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 relationship, relationship, relationship. Yeah. Michelle spoke about brave spaces as opposed to safe spaces. We're not going to go into that again, but I have so much to say about it. It's really hard not to go there, but I'm not going to go into that right now. I really like being brave when I have enough safety with the client. I really want to push them outside their comfort zone. Obviously, if they're in distress, that is not a good time to do that. They're already outside of their comfort zone if they're in distress, right? So if there's stability, rapport, connection, safety, I really love to push them to push their edge, to not let them be with their constant narrative and this and that, and but just to be challenge something, right? So it's a safe place, but it's a brave place. And I know that's not the definition of that, but it's how I like to think about it. Okay.
Can I highlight something on that?
Yes.
You're going to have a range of clients. And that's part of what's so beautiful and juicy about this work is you're going to have the client who can't feel anything. And then you're going to have the client that is so juicy, you can like push all of their edges because they're so ready for it. And you're so ready for it. And like Stefana said, there's rapport and like you can just go there. I've had clients stand in the middle of this carpet and like stand there in their like powerful, embodied self and me throw every fucking barb I can at them, right? Like to really like give them all of the shitty things other people have said and have them like feel how they can stay in their strength in their body, right? But I'm not going to do that with every client. That was one client who was so deeply ready for that kind of experience to stand in her power and like really receive kind of that barrage. She was in a leadership position. And then I have clients where, like being in their body is so terrifying that it's as simple as can you feel your own hand on your skin? And if you can't, can you just give a little squeeze, right? And that's as much as they can tolerate. And so I just want to throw that out there that like all of your clients are going to be so different and that's the art and the play. It's like you get to play with like, oh, I can't, this client, like we can really go there. And this client, like I've got to be really soft and gentle with them and help them, touch in. So yeah, just wanted to throw that out.
Great. Thank you. And I think that's a really beautiful segue actually into what I wanted to invite you to consider again You know, I think that first practice that we're going to do collectively soon enough will be to actually exactly that, to help someone who is not really feeling much sensation, experience sensation, or someone who is in a shutdown or freeze or numbness to to re to re-enliven, to come back online a little bit, even if it's that 1%, as Laura kept saying, you know, like sometimes all we're looking for is that 1% shift, right? Very simple. We're not looking to change their lives in one session. We should not be doing that. Nervous system does not have capacity for that more often than not, right? We can be looking for all the healing, all of the resources, all of the things right in this 1 or 3 sessions. No, that nervous system has been in numbness or shut down for 20 years. Let's do it very slowly. What do we call that? What is the word we use as practitioners and guides to call the doing it slowly and little by little? Carmen and Michelle, please abstain from responding. Anyone? What's the word for that? What are we doing when we're taking it a little bit at a time? Unmute and say it, please. You all know it. Down-regulating is a little different. I'll speak to that in a moment. It's close, but what do we do? What is that called when we're doing it a little bit at a time, not too much? We're taking a little bit at a time, working with that and surfacing to make sure the client is stable enough. And then maybe doing a little more. Yes, thank you, Darren.
So,
Thank you. Yeah, titration, exactly. Thank you. Enjoying some appetizers? Okay, okay, mouse. That's a good phrase, I guess. I've never heard it, but maybe. Okay, so titration. Titrating as a verb and titration as a noun. And it's a word we use to name exactly what I was just saying, right? Little bit at a time, not to, it's like in the deep body lens, in the deep body worldview. If you think about it, this is the deep body system spiral, right? It's not exactly a spiral, but it's kind of a spiral, right? It's like trauma or wounding or freeze or shutdown is somewhere in the system. And what it's creating is, you know, in a very, very basic terms, like a very kind of symbolic terms, oversimplified. But, you know, instead of the breath and the system moving and flow like, ah, right? The health of the system, trauma or wounding or freeze or shutdown or height, whatever, can create a little bit of a like a kink in the system, right? Like a, you know, the system's still functioning, it's still flowing, it's still healthy enough, but there's like a like that disrupts the flow. And what we're doing with titration is not taking something, let's take your wound, what happened to you and what you're feeling right now, and just feel it all, move it. Primal screaming, big stuff, like express it, enliven, whatever, and release it all into the system at the same time. We're touching a little bit of it. We're giving it a little bit of breath, a little bit of movement, a little bit of invitation. Come out, come out. You're safe. Oh, yeah, breathe, move. Okay, let's pause. Let's pause. So instead of the system going from, so instead of the system, can you look at my hands, for example? So someone with trauma may be breathing and functioning like this, right? And when we say, let's move it all at once, the system may go into, you know, and it just we're not helping, we're not healing, we're not regulating, we're not supporting, we're throwing into overwhelm. We're potentially re-traumatizing. We're not titrating. What we want to be doing is titrating. Little, if someone is working with something hard, you want to be touching it a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time. And I think we're going to have a chance to practice that a little bit in a moment. Does this make sense?
Is pendulation interchangeable?
No, no. So this is the other thing I was going to talk about. Not exact, they're kind of similar because titration is a sort of a pendulation, but not really. They have very specific places, right? Titration is a little bit at a time. Touch something, don't overwhelm the system. Touch something, don't go deeper and deeper and more, like, oh, the client is experiencing something, like a discovery, an insight, an epiphany, and you're like, okay, let's go more, let's go deeper, let's ask a deeper question. That would not be titration. Titration would be to go one ring deep and come out, process it a little bit, check in with the client maybe. Maybe all that you need is saying, how do you feel right now? What are you experiencing right now? What happened to that sensation? Are you still feeling it? And if they're like, yeah, I feel good, I'm open, I'm spacious, I'm stable enough, you can go back in and do a little deeper. That is titration. Does this make sense? If you have questions, if it doesn't make sense, please do not be afraid to say, I'm not quite sure I know what you mean. Okay? Because you don't have to understand. Please ask your questions, right? But pendulation is, and again, I'm just going to kind of rephrase, repeat, and give my own words to what both, definitely Michelle has been addressing it multiple times on the calls. So pendulation would be from a stable place, right? So first is stability. If the client feels stable enough, if they're not in hyperventilation or kind of shut down and numbness, right? If they're not over, with overactivate or under the current, if they're kind of stable and present enough, we then can do this pendulation thing where we go in and explore a place that is difficult and is hard, like a distressful place, a challenging emotion. And then what we swing to is a place of resource. So, for example, if I'm where the pendulation is exploring something challenging and then pendulating to something that is the opposite of challenging. It's safe, it's resourced. It's maybe if I'm exploring, for example, a really difficult sensation in my heart and a difficult emotion there, I will get the client to explore it for some time. And then I will say, and can you now let that difficult sensation in your heart contact a different part of your body or connect to a different or the rest of your body or a part of your body that feels stronger, that feels supported, that feels safer right now, that feels like it's got what it needs to hold you, to hold the heart. Can you let the heart be held by the greater you, right? And so I'll give that harder place to something that feels safer. Right? We'll go into the distress, into the discharge, into the wah, and then we'll come out and we'll be like, let's orient, let's look at the light, let's touch a place that feels grounded and safe. Let's feel our feet on the ground. Do you feel safe here? Do you feel your anchor here? Okay, now we can go back and work. And so in a way, it's similar to titration, but they're different things also, right? Like we're just referred to different processes. And I think like, yeah, a mouse, do you have a question?
Yeah. Um, it feels like, I mean, even if somebody has the capacity or like the resource to like be in a hard place for some period of time, it feels like the process of growth in maybe like a pattern that's been around for a really long time, like you're always asking us to like, okay, what wants to change here? How does this want to evolve? What is the next like phase of growth? It just feels like the pendulation is such an essential aspect to like being able to shift perspective or like, yeah, like it just feels regardless of anybody's capacity of how long they can be in a hard place.
Right, exactly, right. It's always a good approach. The pendulation, it's kind of like a wave, right? It's like we're dipping in we're coming out. We're dipping in, we're coming out to a place of, yeah. I guess like Michelle, did you want to, because
Yeah.
Petra, we're going to come to you, but Michelle, did you want to, Nina is asking, what is the difference between titration and pendulation? So I imagine a lot of people are having a hard time figuring out what that is. Yeah.
So titration just means take small bites of the apple. And pendulation is taste the apple and now go taste the orange. Right?
Great.
So the
Exactly.
titration is just that, like, yeah, just chipping away, being small, noticing, right? Taking small bites. And then the other is comparing really this experience in my body to another experience in my body. And by helping them do that, they're able to sometimes disperse some of the intensity of that emotional energy, right? By switching their attention. So it's I think about it, literally like we're over here and now we're over here and we're, going back and forth between these versus like just slow it all down and take it in little bites. Does
A
that?
little bit at a time. Yeah. I think that imagery was so, so helpful. That small bites of the apple. So go down the same experience a little bit at a time, or explore this experience and then go taste another, which kind of contrasts this one. And both are felt in the same time. So you have capacity for both. You
Yeah.
can feel the distress, but you're also resourced, right?
Exactly. Exactly. The other thing I want to piggyback on what Mousebird said, which I think is really important, is, when we think about trauma and we think about like, oh, this negative experience, this difficult experience, the reality is that when someone is going into post-traumatic growth, it's just as fucking terrifying to be in joy and pleasure and, all of those things. And so like just the act of supporting somebody and expanding is going to bring shit up. And so by helping them expand that, it's same thing. The pendulation can be really supportive in that too, because that's unfamiliar territory for a traumatized body. To be grounded and calm and present and connected and juicy is not familiar. And so we want to let them touch that for a moment and come back to what's familiar, and then let them touch on even more pleasure and come back to what's familiar, right? Because same thing, if we open up the floodgates, then their system gets dysregulated because it's so unfamiliar. Right. So I just want to, bring that like when you're working with leadership or helping someone expand themselves, all of this shit will come up. And so, that I just wanted to name that.
Yeah, whatever you're working with, it doesn't need to be defined as trauma or, cold trauma or be trauma. Whatever you're working with, this is a really useful approach, both titration and pendulation, because it gradually expands the capacity of the nervous system for us to hold what is, right? All right, and Petra, I'm assuming, okay, did you still have a question? Okay, go ahead, please.
Can I see pendulation as tool to bring someone back out, like bringing by looking outside and orientate someone? It creates a sensation of safety. So I can see it as a tool, and tritation is a way of doing it. How it's an approach. When I use pendulation, it's a tool. I can someone help to bring safety to oneself by grounding. And tritation is an approach of a way of
experiencing it.
Experience it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's accurate. Yeah. I think that's a very good way to think about it as well. Yeah. Thank you. One more way to think about it for sure. Okay, so I'm curious if we can go the entire time without a break, or do we need to take a break? A break would be good, or no, Josephina, like we can go, or yeah, a break would be good. Okay, let's come back in 3 minutes. Can we do a small break today? Okay, so let's come back at 12 past the hour, 13 past the hour. All right, coming back to our circle. And
Stefana,
yeah.
I have a question and I put it in the chat and I'm not sure if there will be time now or later, so I just thought I put it in there.
Okay. I think this one will take a deeper contemplation and a very complex response. So I think I'm going to bookmark it if that's okay with you, Nina. But thank you. It's a beautiful question. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. This is definitely an area where I feel I have a lot to say, and I would love to share more. So just how does trauma show? How do we recognize? Like, there's so many ways, right? It's not just one thing. It's not just one embodiment, experience, embodied experience, or it's not just one look that trauma has that we recognize it by, you know? But what are some? What does it look like in the room? What could be some ways in which we recognize trauma? Just give me one. Just please give me just one in one word or two, no more. Yes, Petra.
Frozenness.
Frozenness. How does that look? What does that look like?
A
We
mask-like face.
Okay. Maybe one in the way one of the ways we know is like kind of a mask on the face, not a the muscles are kind of frozen. Like how else might we recognize frozenness? Please feel free to put in the chat as well. How would we recognize a freeze or a collapse or a shutdown? So very similar trauma responses, right? How might we recognize them in the body? What would we be observing in the client if they're shut down or frozen or in collapse? Small movements, right? Small movement or no movement, lack of movement. Pretty tight shoulders, usually kind of a guarded. I would notice a lot of like holding the hands in, holding the shoulders in, protecting the heart. You know, it'd be just kind of like, don't get in here. It's kind of a collapsed figure, literally. There's a collapse in the body, like usually the upper body has collapsed. Oftentimes, if you're an intuitive embodiment person, you will, I feel a real cold in my pelvis or feet when I observe them. So I don't know if, you know, but I have this kind of clear sentient capacity where I can, in sensation, I receive information from other bodies. I don't know if that is, you know, but if you notice that it might be something that is giving you information about the client, unless it's your own thing, right? So you kind of, if you feel it, you have to clarify with them, are you feeling cold in your pelvis right now? But oftentimes you may perceive them kind of the energy of their body up here and no energy in the lower body. The lower body is pretty excluded, pretty shut down. It's not moving. If you're asking them to move, they're not moving the lower body. That is a shutdown. That is a freeze. That is a collapse, right? What would the breath look like or sound like or feel like? Deep, shallow, spacious, loud, quiet, non-existent. Wait, in freeze. Can someone speak to that? Lack of breath, restricted breath. Exactly. Good. Restricted breath, flat breath, kind of, yeah. Shallow, absolutely. Fast is not a freeze. I would, you know, in the freeze, you know, that would be more, the fast breath would be more if you're like if you're activated, if you're, you know, kind of in a hyper activation, if you're in a fight or flight, that would be more the fast breath, right? So the frozen breath, the shutdown breath is, yeah, you can't really take a full breath. Your breath, if you ask the person, trace your breath for a few moments, where does it reach? Does it reach the solar plexus? Does it reach the belly? Can you feel it all the way in the pelvis? Oftentimes they will be just breathing just right here, down here. The lower body is completely excluded. So first intervention may be, can you slowly allow your breath, inhale, to travel down just an inch more, a centimeter more, right? Can you feel it a little further down, right? Okay, and what else? How else could we recognize a shut down, collapsed, frozen state? Anything else that comes to mind that we have not yet named? It might be that their eyes are looking away, that they're not actually meeting your eyes. This is kind of like, I'm just shut down, just don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. That's what they're doing. That's what they're doing is they don't want to do it. Resistance. The resistance shows up huge, and they may not say, hey, I have a lot of resistance. They may just resist you in all kinds of ways because, shut down in a way is like a big wall. They don't want to go in there and feel it all.
The voice is broken also sometimes.
The what is broken?
The voice, their voice.
The voice is dry and broken, and like they're
Broken.
not even connected to their voice. Yes, exactly. Um, so one thing we haven't named that is really important and that I'd love for us to work with today a little more is when very often, and this is one of the first ways in which you will know that someone is actually working with a more specific and probably deeper trauma, is that they have no sensation in their bodies. They cannot feel it. You're like, feel this, feel that. They're like, they go back to their minds. They're like, yeah, well, I don't know. Maybe it's like I feel like I excited for the day, or like I just can't wait for this work meeting, or they just go into complete story, have no capacity um, to go in. And what that really is fear. But it's also a way that they've learned to protect themselves, right? So it's something to really respect. So someone, and often you will witness this with women who have experienced significant sexual violence, for example, that they will not be able to report sensation in their body. They don't want to. They don't want to go back in there. They don't want to feel. They were in their body before. It wasn't safe enough. Someone violated them completely. And so now don't tell me to feel my body. That is not safe for me. I worked with a firefighter recently, with a woman firefighter who grew up with three brothers and works in firefighting, which, is completely male dominated. She's probably the only woman there. And she wanted to reopen her sensual body, total witch, and yet she has had no space and environments in her life where she could let her sensuality actually be safe and flow. Her brothers, she wasn't violated, but her brothers always shut her down as a woman, and her professional environment continues to, right? And when we started working, and I would start taking her down into the womb and just to move her hips, she would literally freeze and come back and say, you're asking me questions and I literally can't hear them. And I'm sorry to tell you, but I don't think I can do this. And, I know I asked you to do these sessions, but, Stefana, I don't think this is the right work for me. Right? All kinds of strategies to not do it, to not go in because it's never been safe. And she just literally could not report on a single sensation in the body, did not know what sensation means, had a very superficial understanding of what it is to feel in the body, and her body was not a safe place. I have never felt safe in my body, she said, right? So you will often work with people who either say this explicitly or you will learn to recognize it. They're like, I don't really feel anything. I'm just numb, right? Oftentimes numbness. What I feel today is numb. What I feel today is resistance. That is all. That is all. Nothing else. Okay. So this is our first clue that there's a freeze and a shutdown and a collapse in the system, which is a beautiful, well, what do I want to say? I guess I really want to invite you to consider that our role is not to go in there and to be like, no, enliven, feel, do it, come on, rise out of it. The first thing is what? Bow down. Numbness, high numbness. Thank you for being here. You, numbness, are a feeling. Numbness is a feeling. It's not the opposite of feeling. Numbness is a feeling of the lack of feeling. It is here for a reason. It is what someone chose to do for themselves or invented for themselves in a moment of incredible danger or lack of safety. It's what at one point the system was able to do in order to protect us from too much feeling or too much danger, perceived danger even. Doesn't need to be real danger, right? So part of us chose to stay numb and realized I'm safe here. So I'm going to stay numb. And I'm going to come up with all kinds of strategies to not feel. So recognize, acknowledge, hi, numbness. We feel you. Beautiful. Thank you for being here. Thank you for protecting. Thank you for guarding. Thank you for keeping me safe. Help the client understand that numbness is a feeling, not the opposite of it, and it's here for a reason. Help the client understand that the lack of sensation in the body, the lack of feeling in the body, is not a defect, right? It's not a defect, but it's a beautiful response by the wise, deep body to protect us from a danger that once existed, right? And so then, when there's enough compassion and understanding and acknowledgement of the numbness, of the shutdown, of the freeze, of the I don't want to feel, I'm not feeling, then maybe we can begin inviting, re-inviting safety in feeling the body again. Slowly, slowly, titrating, right? Making the body, creating all kinds of invitations for the person to feel her body, her own body, as a safe space again. Space is safe space to feel, safe space to be, right? And this is like a vast territory, right? Like we're not going to learn this in 20 minutes. We're not going to be like experts in how to do this, but it also is very simple. And so I'm just gonna kind of put the two main things on the table for your attention. And then I'm going to ask you to brainstorm with me, with us, for strategies for how to bring someone into a little bit more feeling, into a little bit more melting of the freeze, you know? What could we do if that happens safely, right? But for a moment, I'm just going to put that on the table as one of the ways in which trauma is noticeable and it's there, or just an experience. I don't know if we always need to call it trauma, but it's trauma or just an experience that's just a shutdown, a freeze, a numbness, right? What is the other prominent expression, the kind of contrast of how we may observe trauma in the body that is not collapse and freeze and numbness? What's the other thing?
Hyper alertness.
Yes, hyper alert. Well, I think hyper alertness, being alert about everything, could happen in freeze too. I don't know if, Michelle, correct me if I'm wrong, but my impression is that hyper alertness, hyper vigilance is there even when you're frozen, right? So that's just being really attentive. What is happening? Is everything okay? Like who's that person? Who's that, like, but you're still frozen. But the hyperactivation, the bigger, so it's either the body's kind of shut down or the body is in these like bigger responses. Like what? Like what? What could that look like? How could we recognize dysregulated hyperactivation in the body? What is that like? Give me a few. Like there are many ways, but what are, whereas in one place the breath is shallow, it's non-existent, it doesn't reach deep. What is the breath doing here? It could be hyperventilation. Right? That could be kind of the extreme, but the breath is moving faster. The breath is still shallow, but is moving faster. It's probably more audible. Is the voice out louder or is the voice not existent? Please unmute and like don't be afraid to say the wrong thing too, like you can say the not the
Louder,
perfect thing.
high-pitched?
Louder, high pitch, exactly. Rage, eyes wide open. It could be like, and these are more on the extreme of the spectrum, right? Not everybody's going to have these giant responses, but definitely sometimes it's a fastening. It's fastening, no. Speeding up, like it's a speeding up. It's a sympathetic response. It's like a throwing us over the board of like balance and regulation, and being in rage or being in a primal screaming or like wanting to punch something or punching bags or what else could happen? Stomping our feet on the ground, right?
Or like, actually having like a trembling response.
Trembling response. Sure, sure. What else?
Can it be close to aggressive behavior?
Yeah, absolutely. Aggression, absolutely. Loud screaming, rage, aggression. Yeah. So it's like Michelle said last time, it's as if suddenly a lot of trapped emotion that was frozen, which is the other side of trauma, right? All of a sudden we just got hyper dumped into the system and it's just now, right? So generally speaking, these are the primary ways. It's either too little or it's too much, right? It's either a freeze and a shutdown or it's a hyperactivation and it's too much, right? And it's showing in every possible way in the movement and in the body, respectively. Small movement, no movement, frozen movement, tightness, no voice, broken voice, shallow breath on the freeze, and the opposite of that on the hyperventilation, on the hyperactivation, right? On the bigger movements, faster, like kind of uncontrollable in a way, right? So these are the kind of the two, and again, these are the extremes on the spectrum. It could be smaller than that and still be the same thing, right? And so yeah, I like that, Indigo. Yeah, erratic, directionless movement. Yeah, like it's all over the place. Absolutely. And one more thing. So so this is, in a way, this is what I want you to think about. Incredibly simple. And like, I don't know, Michelle, if you'll agree with me, but I can't wait to hear. In order to really simplify, and I think this is it's still really deep understanding. Working with challenging places is really that recognizing that something is too little, too little, too much of a freeze, not too much life force, not too much energy, not too much aliveness, too little or too big, right? And so our role is to recognize and honor first, to allow the experience, to welcome it, to recognize it, to let it be, not to change it, not to fix it. But when we do begin offering a response, offering a healing or an evolution or an exploration even, then we are seeking to either upregulate or downregulate respectively, right? If it's too little, we want to bring it up. And if it's too overwhelming and if it's too much, we want to bring it down, right? It's just balance. That's all it is, right? I think that's a very simplified but very powerful way to think about this. Yeah, let me go to Petra first. She has a question. She had a question, and then I'll come to you, Josefina.
Yeah. Where phrases go to? Like, what can I do? I don't have any choice. Where does those phrases go to in the picture?
I would say they're in the freeze, yeah. There's like
Okay.
I don't really
Yeah,
have a choice. I don't really have agency. No, I can't really do
yeah,
anything. I
yeah.
can't. I can't.
Okay,
I can't.
freeze. Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Josefina.
About the blended state of freeze and fight or flight. I think it's the fawn
I'm sorry, I
response.
can't. You're broken up a little. I couldn't hear. Could you say that again?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so I was wondering about the blended states of fight or flight and freeze. Like I think it's called the fawn response. How do we work with that as well, or do you have anything to say about
Yeah,
that
I
one?
mean, yeah, the blended states. Yeah, it's like I think that, because they don't necessarily happen in the same swing, and I'm curious what Michelle has to say about it, and I'll come to you, Michelle, in a moment. But I think it's because like we still want to pendulate them, right? It's kind of like if you're in the more frozen experience, let's explore that. Let's see how you might be safe to come up without fighting from freeze, not into fight or flight, but into just like on a little bit of aliveness. If it's fight or flight, let's have you soothe and ground and be able to take a deeper breath and then look at what's here. So just like it's still again, it is about like, are you feeling too much? Are you feeling too little? Where are you on the spectrum? And can we help you kind of come to a relative stability? I That would be my answer. Michelle, what would you say?
So, I think it would depend on the client, but an approach I would likely take is to notice that state itself, to like let both be there at the same time and get really curious about how that actually shows up in the body, how like the outside might be frozen and I feel like ants are crawling on the inside of my body, right? And so allowing for some of that exploration, but also still doing that pendulation piece of like, is there any part of your body that is feeling, grounded, positive, neutral, whatever it might be, or bringing in the ancestors of the earth body connection or whatever it might be. There, because that is a permission, right? That is a permission and an acknowledgement that both of those states are happening at the same time. And let's get curious about how that shows up in your body, right?
Hmm.
And see if we can offer anything to the system in relationship to that as we explore it.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, we can't hear you for some reason, Josephina. Can you try again?
Yeah. How about
Yeah.
now? Is it okay? I was thinking about like when a client is in a phone response and actually doesn't want to move, doesn't want to move to the guidance, but they try to
Yeah.
please us, or they, but like how do we work with that?
Mm.
I don't know if it
That's
makes sense.
exactly the question I want to invite us all to work with right now. So let's do this. Let's do this in a practice environment. So what I'd love to invite you to do is if we think about this very simple model, if something's too little, upregulate after acknowledging and allowing it to be and allowing it to inform us. And if it's something's way too much, downregulating, right? So sometimes in hyperactivation, it's not about honoring the experience, and sometimes it is, a lot of the times it is, but sometimes it's so much, so taxing on the system that we want to just kind of immediately bring the system back to more balance and then explore what's happening. So stability is kind of the first thing, right? So something's really off balance. Stability is the first thing, right? So I'd love for you, Carmen's going to send us into breakout rooms here in a moment. And you're going to have a couple of partners. So you're going to be 3 people in the room. And I want you to take about 10 minutes or so. We really are short on time again for some reason, but it's just like so much to discuss all the time. But where you will have the task to together brainstorm and write down about, okay, Nadia, we got that. Yeah, take care of yourself. I know you've been sick, so please take care of yourself. Um, you're going to brainstorm about what might you do when someone, and I will be your client, when you come back, you're going to have to guide me. I will be the client who I'm numb, I'm not feeling much. Everything's fine. I'm kind of calm, but honestly, I don't really have a desire for anything. You're going to have to help me experience sensation in my body. You're going to have to help me wait, like figure out what is numbness doing in my body. Can I feel something underneath the numbness? What is the numbness protecting? So from freeze and shut down, you're going to have the task to bring me out a little bit, 1%, right? If I'm feeling completely unsafe to feel sensation, what are you going to do? If, well, not unsafe, I'm not going to tell you I'm feeling unsafe to feel sensation, but I'm going to tell you I don't feel anything, right? So your task will be to bring me out of freeze. So I invite you to go into the rooms and brainstorm. What invitations can you make for the breath, for sensations, for earth-body connection, movement, sound, touch, right? The primary languages, in order for you to bring me out of freeze or to, it doesn't even need to be bring me out, but just to begin working with my frozenness in a way that helps me out of it eventually, right? Just to begin, we're not going to do a full on, but write those down. And in each of the groups, you will have appoint one person who will be writing these down. If maybe you all are writing them down, but one person, when you come back, will kind of be the person to report what you came up with. Okay. One person will be the writer and the reporter. Okay. Carmen, without Nadia, can we still do it? And if we just have two people in a room, it's okay. So maybe one room will have two people.
Oh, I'd already, oh, huh. It was perfect a moment ago. I turned it into 3 rooms so we would have,
That's okay.
but
So I think we're
now
going to take
Mousebird
about,
isn't assigned, so
yeah, you can just shuffle them around and
yeah.
let's take 8 minutes so we can come back in 8 and have some time to practice. Oh, and is Michelle going into a room too? I guess she is. Are there 4 people in a room? I
Well,
see. Okay, that's okay.
so
That's okay.
there were 3 people in a room and one room with 4, but then suddenly uh
I
Mousebird wasn't assigned.
I invited Michelle out, but she can decide whether she wants to come out or not. I definitely want to, Michelle, I hope she knows not to. Here she
There she
is.
is.
I just have
We
myself,
didn't,
I just took myself off video and was hanging out.
oh, I see. Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious what they come up with, but I definitely didn't want you to be the one to tell them. So,
No.
okay. And somehow I thought we were gonna, but it's okay. I thought we're gonna have 3 people in each room, but I think 4 is
Well,
good. You know, they're gonna have even more people
yeah,
power.
we did until Mousebird wasn't assigned, and then
No one's coming back ahead of time. Everybody's like using every last second. All right. Okay, people. Beautiful. I'm sure you came up with some really amazing ideas together. And we have very little time left in the practicum today. So I will invite, who were those 4 people? Was it 4 or 3 people who took the notes and wrote down the questions? Josefina, Mouse, and uh, Nicole. Yeah, 3 people. So the 3 of you get to be the guides and the voices right now, unless someone else in your group insists to volunteer instead. But so it will be the 3 of you. And let's say I think I want to just keep it an open forum. So maybe one of you, maybe why don't you start, Josefina? And then of course you're going to be leaving a little bit of space. And then the other two can also come in with their own questions when you feel appropriate, when you feel the time is right. You don't have to use all of the questions you came up with, but just the ones that feel relevant. You can not do it well. You have my full permission to fuck up, to just lose it, to not be sure what to say, whatever happens, okay? We've got it. I'm okay. And Michelle will be looking out, will be kind of tracking. And if she feels like there's a suggestion she might want to make for you to use, she will put it in the chat. She may also voice it, but most likely she's going to put it in the chat. And as a guide, you can use it. And we're going to take about 8 minutes. And when we have 2 minutes, let's do 7 minutes. When we have 2 minutes left, Carmen will let us know that we have 2 minutes left. Okay, Josefina, what's the question?
Yeah, is it going to be with music? Because my AirPods just, okay.
Oh, no,
Perfect.
no music. No,
Perfect.
I'm frozen when like no music needed. All right. So one thing I want to invite you to just please remember is that I'm a living being and that you're not, you're not only interested in guiding, but you're interested in hearing what's happening for me. So I have to give feedback. I have to let you know what's happening for me. As you invite me places, ask me to report back to you so you know what to do. And I'm gonna pretend a lot, right? So I might be challenging for you, but it's on purpose.
So how long do I have in the beginning?
7 minutes beginning now, and you can take just start with one question, and then maybe you can kind of ask a second question, then hand it off. You kind of have to explore and then hand it off to. And you guys can come, you don't have to wait for Josefina to be completely finished and to give you a sign that she's done. You can just unmute and just say you're unmuted actually, so you can just speak another question that aligns with hers. So you're kind of doing it together. Let's see what happens.
Okay. Okay, Stefana, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
So I'm just going to invite you to notice your feet on the ground now and notice how the weight is shifting between right or left. And just let me know if you can feel the feet on the ground. Do you feel your feet on the ground?
Yeah, kind of. I can't really feel any shifting because I'm sitting down, but I can kind of feel my feet on the ground.
Do you still want to sit or do you want to stand up? What
I
would you
don't
like?
know. I'm okay like this.
You were sitting. All right, that's fine. Okay. So I would actually invite you to, if you can, and if you feel safe to, just slowly open your eyes. Would that be okay for you to open your eyes?
Yeah.
Right. And I would like to invite you to send your gaze around in the room. Just notice what's in the room with you right now. So you can notice the small details like color or shape, light, and shadow, and maybe even send your head around from right to left and up and down. And maybe you can do it slower to just notice the small detail of the room. And let me know what's going on with you right now. What are you sensing at this moment?
Sensing? I was just looking at the floor.
All right. And what are you
Um,
noticing on the floor?
the carpet, yeah, I don't know. I mean, the desk, the light, the
Yeah.
things, but I just honestly, I feel, yeah, I don't know. I'm just not really myself today.
Stefana.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
So I wanted to invite you to shift your attention to your breath. And can you let me know the awareness of where breath is moving in your body? Are you aware of your breath moving
Yeah.
in through your nostrils?
Nostrils, no.
No.
But
Where do you
I
feel breath?
wasn't feeling it just in here, my chest.
Mm-hmm. And just invite you to keep your hand there. Keep your hand there on your body where you are noticing the breath moving in your body. And just invite you to take a deeper breath there. Just invite you to keep breathing there and allow your hand to make contact with the movement in your chest, inviting your hand to move even a little bit if that feels possible, touching the different places that are moving here. And maybe even just keep moving there and keep sensing what are you noticing in your face as you're touching your face there? What are the
Yeah,
sensations?
I don't know sensations, I'm not sure. But when you were asking me to touch what's moving here, I suddenly felt my head. It's kind of
2 minutes.
I think my head hurts.
So Stefana, yeah, maybe you just put your hands on your body where they are right now, and maybe you can like make the touch a bit, like squeeze a little bit, so you feel your hands on your face, and just notice. And maybe you can move your attention a bit further down your body and just move your toes. Can you move your toes?
Yeah.
And how does that make you feel?
Distracted, but yeah, it feels good.
Yeah. So maybe I would like to invite you to stand up, if that's okay for you. Feel your
So
feet.
I want to take just a time out for a moment and just point a couple of things out because I am making it hard for you, but it also feels really organic. Not because I want to make it hard, but because it actually I am experiencing what I'm experiencing. And, I felt a very significant shift when Josephina started really beautifully, but I was resistant, right? It's like, oh, noticing things in the room. Yeah, but whatever. Who cares? It is the light and the desk and the carpet. And then Mouse beautifully brought it in, the breath, your hand moving. And I was like, okay, I'm noticing my breath. And instantly I felt my headache. So I'm having a sensation, I'm having an experience in a body that's shut down and does not feel very much, right? So I come to my forehead, and Mouse didn't say it with those exact words, but did notice me and said, "What are you feeling there when you're touching now?" Beautiful, right? Acknowledging what I am doing, the little thing that is happening, not the thing that's not happening, but the thing that is happening, right? And so I really was connect. All of a sudden, I have a headache, really, and I'm just feeling that, and I crave to be taken deeper into that because it's the one thing I can feel right now. And you come in and you tell me to put my hands back where they are, and that feels really good. But then I go deeper into my head, and I feel so ready to actually go into the deeper things because now I'm feeling. And when you ask me to go into my toes, it's not where I am. It's not where I'm going. It works in some ways, but my real desire is to explore this heavy headache. You ask me to stand and I don't want to because my head is heavy. And so in a way, it's like taking the clues of my body to say, what is happening there? Is you're holding your head? Is it heavy? Is it like, what are you noticing there? What are you noticing there? Right. And it was really good that you asked me about the toes because it's like, oh yeah, I do have sensations there. And now the next thing would be to take me a little further into what I am already doing, right? Because initially I wasn't doing anything and I didn't want to do anything. And then suddenly you guys all took me to beautifully to a place where something was beginning to happen. And so the next place would be to take me a little bit deeper into that because that is where the sensation is, right? Does this make sense in some way?
Yeah, I would reinforce that as a general note for all of
Yeah.
us, right? That we may have our agenda or our understanding of like, oh, I want them to be able to pendulate or I want them to be able to whatever. But the reality is when they're having an experience, that's what we want to focus on, right? Whatever is happening. And in Hakomi, they use a lot of what they call contact language, which is like, oh, your hand is on your head, huh? And you're not saying anything other than like what's actually happening. And the is like an invitation for them to go, yeah, right? And to notice themselves what is actually happening. And so that mirroring of what she's already doing and inviting that to continue is that is how we step out of our own agenda and just follow their body.
Yeah, absolutely. And we asked you to have an agenda. We asked you to come here with an agenda, so you had prepared questions, and those were beautiful and worked really well. They are really good questions, all of them. Everything you asked, including the toes at the end, including my hand moving with the breath, including orienting, which you did, Josephina, right? These were really good. And I think just next level, if we should have like another 15 minutes, right? But we don't. Next level would be to take those same questions that all of you came up with, and to bring them into the context of what's really happening for me, right? So bring those questions for the breath or for the sound or for the touch into what I'm doing with my head, right? That would be basically the next step to see in a frozen body, why is my head suddenly wanting to actually say something? Why is it suddenly giving me a sensation? So it has a message for me, right? It has a message for us, right? That would be like one way to work with it, I would say. All right. Well, I somehow imagined that, well, I know we have to go, and you're very welcome to leave the call now. But if you have another moment to stay, I just want to hear another couple of questions from you, Josephina and Mouse and Nicole, that you wrote down. Just straight up questions. What are some questions that you didn't get to share so we can take note of them?
So we actually had some of the same questions as Mouse had, and one question is also to try to walk around and to move in the room to establish some movement. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, right. To move around the room, right, to make some movement, even if I don't want to somehow help me out of my resistance to come into movement. Beautiful, beautiful. And Mouse?
Um, yeah, when in terms of moving around the room and taking in the environment with the eyes, but also inviting, taking in the room with touch, and then finding a specific object that invokes some level of curiosity or sentimentality or some semblance of connection, and then
Mhm.
exploring the relationship between that object and finding what sensation, what's the connection there.
Right, to resonate something external that feels regulating or safe or good
Mm-hmm.
to come to also like kind of mirror some kind of experience in my body, right? To be like, how does it feel on the inside, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. That is
Mm-hmm.
really, really right on. That is like basically it. That is it. Awesome. Nicole, one or a couple of things.
Yeah, the similar things that have been said, but we also talked about maybe an invite to yawn, just to invite the breath naturally into the
Oh,
body.
invite a yawn.
A yawn, yeah, and
That's really creative. Yeah, can you yawn? I
well, we
usually,
discussed it a bit, and then we thought maybe not start with that, but down the
yeah,
line
but at
a
some
bit.
point, because it is a
Yeah,
relaxation, right? It is a
yeah,
release and stuff. Yeah,
yeah,
I wonder how, I personally feel incredibly resistant to people telling me what to do in my body, right? Like kind
mm,
of like do that or yawn, like,
yeah. No,
but I
it's just
think
an
it
invitation.
actually,
Yeah,
right? I think it is a really good invitation, actually. Can you just stretch your mouth and yawn and yeah, awesome.
yeah.
Good
And
ones, you
notice
guys.
where the breath
Beautiful.
is going. Yeah.
Notice what your breath is doing when you yawn, which is more relaxing, more spacious, more kind of more aliveness, more realness. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much. In the pods, you will continue with very similar. Hopefully, you'll have a lot more space, but that's the goal that you're going to brainstorm collectively and you will guide collectively, um, so that we can all kind of come around the same concepts. Wow, 7 minutes. Thank you for staying over time. Really appreciate it. Thank you for today. We'll be seeing you soon.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
No.